in order to get access to those, to be able to use that energy for their own benefit. There were individuals who were seeing, because of the divination process and just being around me, the more you understand about spirits, the more that you are able to see spirits, like in how they express with a human being. Certain like physical traits, certain mannerisms, certain ways of being show up as an expression in connection with certain spirits. All right, we're back for part 4 of my spiritual journey, and it's really getting good now. So I'm in initiation, really in an ancient Egyptian mystery school, also known as Kemetic. And I'm going through this process, having divinations done, starting to learn about the spirits that I come with, that I carry. And my gifts are really growing, like really coming online during this period. Now I'm still navigating certain health issues, but they're starting to reduce as I'm going through this process. And this is also when I start traveling to Africa. So while I was in this initiation, by the way, took 3 years. I was in that initiation for 3 years. And I was also traveling to West Africa specifically while I was in this initiation. So I traveled through 4 countries with other initiates, spent a total of 4 months over there. And also, I was in the process here as well. So I was going there to complete certain ceremonies, go through certain, spiritual processes and so on and so forth. Now, this is where it starts to get ugly, because I think this is my spiritual community. I think this is where I'm a be. I found my spiritual home. Wrong. In many ways, the knowledge that I was gaining was beautiful. The concept of that group was essentially to return to traditional spirituality, to return to the old ways. And not just the old ways, right? Like very specific culture. Okay. So I'm having that experience. Now, when I start going to Africa and I start having specific kind of experiences, maybe I'll say the full breadth of them, but in short, what I was experiencing was spiritual manipulation. The use of spiritual technology and knowledge to influence me in a way that was not pure of intention, was not actually for my good, but for the benefit of specific individuals. Now, I hate to use the word because I don't like to perpetuate certain ideas, but you've got to understand that spiritual tools are just tools, right? They by themselves are tools. The tools themselves are not good or evil. It's how we use them. It's our intention and what we use them for that is the problem or not a problem, right? So, unbeknownst to me, I was experiencing being juju. And a big reason for that was because of the spirits that I carry. The spirits that I carry come with a lot of luck, a lot of beauty, beautiful things, sweet things, abundance, money. This is what's written in my destiny, essentially. Now, it being written in the destiny doesn't mean that I'm a do that, right? Like I still have to do my things, right? But the spirits that I come with, the spirits that I am connected with, that's what they bring. So in order to get access to those, to be able to use that energy for their own benefit, there were individuals who were seeing, because of the divination process and just being around me, the more you understand about spirits, the more that you are able to see spirits, like in how they express with a human being. Certain like physical traits, certain mannerisms, certain ways of being show up as an expression in connection with certain spirits. So I did not know that that was happening, but I on my second trip to Africa, I started to really like, my gifts were on 10 on that trip. I was now able to see my own spirits, like literally see the spirits that I walk with, and my dreams. At this point, now I started having certain dreams where I'm interacting with other people and they're telling me certain things. And at first, I thought it was just cute. And I would go up to that person. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I had this dream of you last night. And we were da 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 in this place. And, you told me yada, 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 yada. Right. And they would be like, yeah, that's private information. So I was like, oh, I need to learn how to control this because I'm able to connect with them in their dreams. So there were those things happening. I'm seeing spirits at a really heightened, crazy level. And then I'm also seeing, a lot of people will say their third eye's open, in that they like became aware of what was happening. And that's not your third eye opening. Your third eye opening is like literally another eyeball that you can literally see. It's not just like metaphorically being able to see like what's happening in the world or whatever. It's like, no, I actually could see exact places, exact people, exactly what was being said, like a fly on the freaking wall level. So that's happening. And on this trip, I really start to notice that something is wrong. I felt like, or what I perceived happening was like it's almost like I was, if you know anything about horses, right? This wild horse that needed to be tamed. And so everything that was happening around me was like trying to tame me or beat me into submission. And this is also when I start having my first experiences with trance. On this first trip, it is happening completely spontaneously. At first, usually when there's music playing, the spirit takes over. But then I was having these experiences where it was happening, but the spirits wouldn't speak. So I would be in trance, they wouldn't speak. And so, everything would be done to like bring me out of it. It would happen multiple times. I don't even remember how many times. It happened at least 4 or 5 times on that trip. So I come back from that trip not fully understanding what's happening, like what's changed. But this is when my husband makes me aware of the spiritual manipulation that's happening. So I'm like, all right, well, we got to kind of keep it quiet, because I knew as soon as we went counter to the group, then the spiritual manipulation was going to become straight out spiritual attacks. So over a few months, I'm like slowly but surely pulling myself out. And then I got this opportunity to come out that was basically like, I'm just not going to have enough time. So I pull myself out and I'm like, okay, phew, like dodged that, dodged that bullet. And my dreams are like picking up. And I'm seeing so much happening to others, because it wasn't just me. I wasn't like some special being. It was happening with other people in different ways, because they come with different things. So I have this moment where I was working with a priestess and I'm having these dreams, and she was like, look, you're at a fork in the road moment, because I'm seeing very clearly what's happening. And there are some people who were were traveling there who didn't understand what was happening to them. But I knew what was happening. And I don't believe in being, in having to be a savior. However, I was seeing it for a reason. So, she was like, you have to make a choice. You either be who you're here to be, which is a truth teller, or you decide to stay safe. Because up until that point, no one really knew that I knew. And I was like, all right, well, guess it's time for me to speak the truth. So I warned them what was happening. Of course, people thought I was crazy. But now, in the years since, I know some of you all are going to be listening. In the years since, I'm not looking so crazy. So, anyway, now I am a target and I start experiencing spiritual attacks. Because up until that point, it was just to try to get me to leave my husband so that I could become somebody's wife. No, now I'm an enemy. So now spiritual attacks are coming at me. And my health is also getting worse. My calling sickness is getting worse. At this point now, I'm having like severe migraines with along with other things. My temperature dropping so low, the sweats, the bone pain, and I remember I was just like at my wit's end one day, and I'm like in the bedroom, it's the middle of the day, but I had all the blinds shut, light off, and I just start speaking out loud to my ancestors, everything that comes with me. And I say, whoever's listening right now, I don't care what I have to do. I don't care how much money it costs. I don't care how hard it is. I don't care what discomfort I have to go through. I don't care what it is. I will do anything to put an end to this. Now, as soon as I say that, as soon as I stop talking, my phone goes bing, little light goes off, and I've got a message. Now, I look on this message and it's this woman, and she says to me, "Are you a healer?" And I say, "No, not yet, but I know I'm called to become one." And I go and I look at her page, at her profile picture, and I have no idea how we got connected. We had no mutual friends at all. But she looked so familiar to me. And so I start asking her, where do you live? She's like, I live in South Africa. I'm like, have you traveled to West Africa? Do you know, like, have you been to the US? No, no, no. And then it finally dawns on me where I had seen her before. You see, I had dreamed of her, but I was very confused because in the dream, I was being taught by this person who looked like me. So I thought it was me. But if you see my spiritual mother, we look like we could be sisters. So I had seen her in my dream a year before. So I share with her, I know where I know you from. I saw you in my dream a year before. So anyway, we have conversation, do divination, and then I check with my ancestors, is this the path that I need to go on? And the answer was yes. Because for me, I never would have gone to initiate in South Africa if I had not experienced like the level of spiritual attack that was happening. Because what was happening was I needed to reclaim my own power. Part of the reason for me of why I was experiencing the challenges I was experiencing was because I was not embodying who I am here to be. And so until I claimed that, until I became that, I was going to continue experiencing all of these problems in my life. And I hope that you're able to take that from me, because that is why so many people struggle in a lot of ways, is because of not walking in alignment with who they are here to be on this earth, in this life. So this is when I start initiating to become a Sangoma. Now, I have to also, no, I won't pause here on this. I'll tell this after this story. So this is when I start that initiation process, and I start learning. Um, I start going through the process through the Zulu way. And eventually that results in me going to South Africa to complete my ceremonies, because I was doing my my spiritual work here in the US and training long distance, and then I had to go over there to complete my ceremonies. So I go over to South Africa, had no idea what to expect. But all those years, at this point now, like we're talking almost 5 years total of being in initiation. And I have learned how to master myself to a certain degree that makes it possible for me to make it through this ceremony, through all of my ceremonies, because I completed 7 initiations while I was there. And I come with a lot of spirits. My whole spirit squad, I come with a whole gang of them. And because in this initiation, right, like the requirements or the ways of being are even more challenging. That initiation was one of the most challenging things I think I've ever done. Like my best friend being murdered, one of the hardest things. Initiation, one of the hardest things. And then also becoming a mom. So those 3 things I would say are the most difficult things. So as part of that initiation, I can't speak about everything that happened, but there are some things that are just kind of known, maybe not known. Here in the US, it's not super well known how the process works. But of course, there are things that we have to stay away from. So in that case, it's like sugar, milk, sex. Have to sleep on the floor. Have to wake up at 3 o'clock every morning, cleanse, talk to the ancestors. There's certain medicine that you're taking in. And also, there is a process of really becoming, like, really mastering pain. It's just a lot of physical discomfort that we overcome. And also lack of sleep. and. So, what was interesting about that experience was I really came to understand, number one, that I'm spirit first, because there were times where I felt like I reached the limits of what I could do. And then spirit would take over, and I would be able to do things that seemed impossible to do, like be up for 3 days dancing nonstop. Maybe not nonstop, but dancing and up for 3 days, right? And then some of the rites are really challenging. So maybe I don't need 5 parts. So in my first initiation, that was when I became and received the name Makhosi Nejeser, which is more of like it's not like I received the name. It's really you get the name that is symbolic of who you're here to be in this life. So Hefisa means the god Sa, or the god Sia, watches over. And the god Sa is over divine timing, omniscience or all knowingness. And then Nejeser, which is actually like the more important of the names. Nejeser means the advocate or protector of the holy. Then, when I went to South Africa and completed those ceremonies, is when I received the title of Sangoma. Because of the spirits that I carry, I have multiple roles. So I am also a prophetess. I am what some would call a holy person, and others would call spiritual teacher, like a guru type, and others would say an avatar. So I come with a lot of different spirits, completed ceremonies for 7. There's one in particular that I come with called Nzunza, and this spirit is a water spirit, and I initiated in the water. So in addition to my physical earthly initiations. I was taken underwater in the non physical realm where I spent a year. And during that year, I I lived under the water. And I lived in like this cave with what was like my grandmother. And I would go to sleep and I would dream, and I'd wake up and I'd live. I'd go to sleep and I'd dream, and it was like a year. And then I completed that initiation and I woke up here and it had been one night. And this is something that is common with people who, maybe it's not common. I don't know if it's common, but I know a few people who have had this experience with this spirit in particular. So my role, even though I'm a Sangoma because depending on the spirits that you have, right, you come with certain gifting. A Sangoma is a Zulu shaman. And we work through ancestral spirits, the ones that like come with the bloodline. And there's specific ways that you work with altered states, like music, for example. And because of the different spirits that I have, I can work with a lot of different spirits in a lot of different ways. But my highest calling, my purest calling, is to be a walking temple, to be spirit in human form, so that anything that I use is a tool or can become medicine. And this was told to me. I did not understand what it meant because came up in some of the divinations when I first started, like on my very first trip to Africa, when I was like, okay, I'm going to be a priestess, but like, what are the tools I'm going to be using? And like, what is my medicine going to be? And they told me, anything you want is medicine. You can use water. You could pick up this blade of grass and turn it into medicine. You just speak or you just be, and it is medicine. So that is how I got to at least the completion of that. Most people would say that I'm here to be a teacher, that I'm a spiritual teacher. Ultimately, that's my calling for now. I'm not here to do things in the traditional way. A lot of people will say, well, number one, shamans don't call themselves shamans. And number two, shamans aren't on Instagram or aren't seen or aren't public. I think it's important to talk about this for just a second. Number one, yes, we don't call ourselves shaman. Like once I completed my ceremonies is when I became Makhosi. That's when my spiritual mother, my spiritual grandmother, my spiritual family who was around witnessed and saw me complete and still watch and listen to me and all of this, right? They're still around watching. But yes, at the end of that, so I didn't call myself a shaman. I received the title of Makhosi, and Makhosi has to do with specific spirits that I carry that are royal spirits, because it used to be that your royalty was the most spiritual, or like they carried very specific, not the most spiritual, but they would carry a lot of spiritual gifting. And you would want that in your leadership because they have to answer. We have to answer. We have to answer to spirits, not just human. So there's even things like we have to do, even me doing this, talking about this, even me being public, because I am not a person who wants to be public, but that is my calling and that is who I'm here to be. And so we don't just get to do what we want. We do what we commanded of us to do, which that which is in the highest good, right? So it's not always about like what we like or what just feels good to us. Because if that was the case, there's many things that I would not be doing at all. Honestly, I'd probably be in sales. Honestly, I'd just go off, I'd be in sales. I would not have any public following at all, but it is what it is. Anyway, Makhosi has to do with specific spirits that I come with that are of royalty. And Makhosi means chief, or it can mean a royal shaman. That's why I created the brand the way that I did. Also, from my perspective, I would say I'm not really in the work as a Sangoma. At this point, I'm in the work as Isanusi. And it's taken a lot of coming to that, a lot of work to get to that place. And that role is as a spiritual teacher, not just in the day to day healing aspect. The other piece as well of, but if you're a shaman, then why are you visible? Why are you seen? Because real shamans are hidden. A lot of people do not understand or don't take into account culture and societal traumas that happen that cause certain cultural ways of being. So, for example, for hundreds, if not thousands of years, starting approximately 2,000 years ago, we have an experience on this planet where certain groups of people specifically seek out the spiritualists and kill them. Because if you want to control people, you cannot have spiritualists who are connected to something non-physical that people are consulting and asking, is this aligned for me to be doing right now? If your goal is to have your people go out and colonize or kill people, etc., you cannot have spiritualists. So what we've had across the world is an attempt to try to wipe out the spiritualists, the healers, the priests and priestesses, the shamans, etc. So what has happened is, in order to stay safe, these individuals in certain areas of the world have had to hide. Now, if we just use a little bit of logic and we just think about this, before that time, before that time, your shaman had to be known. They did not, yes, they usually lived separate from people, from everyone. They did usually live separate. But they were known because those are your healers. So everyone in the community knows them and they have notoriety, right? Like, I think about the movie Shaka Zulu, and that is a horrible portrayal, number one. And I am sure so many inaccuracies in it. However, he has a shaman at his side, and that was common in many places in the world where you had your king, and also had this advisor, which is a spiritualist, a spiritual advisor, a spiritually connected advisor who has a certain level of recognition and fame, and people know them, right? They're not just hidden. So part of why the story, or the understanding that shamans stay hidden, is for protection, because you've had for hundreds of years, depending on, where we are in the world, the healers were being wiped out, right? Being accused of witchcraft, being accused of being a witch doctor, and so on and so forth, and then being killed. Where if we look at somewhere like South Africa, there's a lot of them. In like different communities, there's a lot. I think last I saw there's like 200,000. There's a lot of them. Not a lot, but like that's still a significant number. It'd be like equivalent to having doctors. And some of those are going to be well known. And they're going to be more who are going to be well known, because some of us are called right now to bring through a new way of being, a new spiritually connected culture. Because it used to be there wasn't a separation. Even now, there's not really a separation between spirituality and culture. They influence one another. Even in the US, we like to think that we're a melting pot, but really our culture is Christian. It permeates how we do things. So I think that it's important that we start shifting really questioning and looking at that narrative of why that is the case. Because, and I know a lot of elders are going to be so upset with me for saying this, and that's okay. That is okay, because that is what has been passed down for your protection as a healer. But we are now shifting into a time where it's going to be necessary for some of us to become well known, even if we don't want it, so that we can do this work, so that we can bring the darkness, bring our shadow stuff as a collective into the light so that we can move through it and work through it, so that we can shift systems. In my case, there's the bigger picture, but also I'm working with conscious leaders who are called to create conscious changes in their particular areas of expertise, whatever industries those are. And I do that through what in the West would be called executive coaching, right? I lump myself in that to get away with it. When in actuality, right, it's like spiritual advising. I think I'm not going to need a part 5. I thought I was going to need a part 5. Maybe I'll have to do one if there's a lot of questions. Let's see if there's any last questions that I did. So yeah, someone asked if someone gave me the title of shaman, which is why I answered that. Yes, someone did. My spiritual mom, my spiritual grandmother was there. There were multiple people there when I received the title, when I was able to get up off the ground and actually take a seat on an actual chair. That was very exciting. A very exciting moment. Some people asked me to share like the most difficult things in my life. I think I've done a good job with sharing those. And what are some of the things that I've seen and experienced that most people wouldn't believe? Well, most people probably won't believe most of this journey because it sounds a lot like, I realize when I say it out loud that it sounds like a movie that somebody would make up, but it is not a movie. I have lived through it. But also, some of the most amazing things that I've seen are the level of possibility for humans. I think that is what really has blown my mind. I remember being in West Africa, going to this festival where you literally can see people whose skin is impenetrable. And on that day, they share their medicine with everyone. And you get to experience that magic, but it's real. Literally seeing them like not being cut with razor blades or able to take a knife to the chest and nothing happened to them. That is for sure some of the most wild stuff that I've seen, in addition to just experiencing this reality in such a way where what most people experience on psychedelics is like my normal experience now. It didn't always feel normal. Like when it first started activating, that felt weird. But now there's a lot of similarity and overlap to that experience. Oh, also another one as well. A lot of people do ask, if I work with plant medicines and so on and so forth. I did initiate after that period of initiation. I did initiate with an indigenous Mexican shaman and working with mushroom medicine and, in the ceremonial space. I've done that for a few years. And sorry, I'm looking down, scrolling, trying to get through these questions. I did do that. I haven't publicly talked a lot about that, mainly because as a brown woman, there are just a lot of things we have to navigate differently. Like, I know that I needed to have certain protections in place. So I've been busy. I'm getting I'm going to be able to work under religious freedom, the Religious Freedom Act, and I've been, working on that, like proving my spirituality. And my hope is at some point to be able to open a temple. That is something that those of us with Nzunza usually have to do at some point, where we either open up like a temple, a church, or something like that. Probably mine is going to be non-physical, at least at first, but we'll see how that goes. Anyways, this has been interesting to share with you all. I hope this has been enlightening and, given you some inside peek. I haven't really shared much of kind of, what's happened since I completed my initiation. I'm now 5 years out from having completed that. So, 10 years in the work. But really, this has been my journey of a lifetime. And the more that I've like come to understand the life path 33, so many things are making sense that this was the case for me. But I'm really excited to share some things about the patterns that certain people that you all are experiencing, the patterns that as a whole we can shift. I know that we're at a really important time in order to bring about some really epic changes, but also it's going to require us to expand our consciousness and take responsibility for our lives, for what we are creating on an individual level, but also as a community and then as a society and ultimately as humanity. And I hope this has been helpful in some way. And, if by the end of this you're like, all right, she is completely a Looney Tune, that's okay. You do not have to continue listening to me. But there it is. I'll see you next time.